Welcome to the All Hoops podcast. I'm your host, Steve Inman. I'm joined by my star producer and co-host, as always, Chris Brito. We have 1 month left of the NBA regular season, and there's plenty to talk about. Before we get to all that, Chris, my friend, how are you?
Hey, Stevie. Happy to be here in another episode of the All Hoops podcast. So, there's a lot we need to discuss. We're obviously going to address the Knicks' fantastic win streak that ended a few nights ago. But I think the first thing I want to talk to you about is the whole Ja Morant situation. So, the Colorado police, basically, Ja Morant was seen at a nightclub in Colorado with a gun. He was on Instagram Live and he flashed a gun, after a series of some off the court incidents that have really put his stature in the public eye in under high distress. So Colorado police didn't want to press charges on him. Um, Without getting too much into the nitty gritty of the stuff, he was suspended for 2 games by the Grizzlies, and he's going to be away for at least the next few more games. Now, Steve, he's one of the biggest stars in the league, and everybody has had an opinion on what he should be doing, what the NBA should be doing. But first, I want to hear what you think about the whole situation.
Yeah, to me, and I said this before the show, and you were kind of rolling your eyes. I think this is the biggest crossroads we've ever seen from an NBA player in at least our 15, 20 years of watching the NBA. He's 23, Chris, and he's about to start a $200 million contract. And you see all these instances of alleged things and, nothing terrible. Like, I mean, obviously all these things are bad, but there was no, oh, he should like, it's hard to explain, right? But it was all these things were alleged. Some people didn't believe him. It was questionable to verify the sources, and then all of a sudden you get to Saturday night at 3 a.m. where he's at a strip club and he flashes the gun in a strip club, and all of a sudden it makes all those other stories seem a little more legitimate when you see something like this. And look, the NBA is powerful. They're a billion-dollar industry. It's a huge business, and to me, this is a very interesting moment, and it's similar to what Carmelo Anthony described recently of his interaction with David Stern after the MSG fight, where he basically said, my whole team, we got in the fight with the Knicks. We were blowing out the Knicks. And my whole team got a 6-game suspension. I got 15 games. So I went to go see David Stern to see why. And he basically said, quote, because of your rap sheet, we know what you've been doing. We know who you hang out with. We know what time those guys get up in the morning, what time they go to bed. We know everything about all of your people. And so the NBA, since that moment, and they basically told Carmelo, you have an option. Do you want to, keep doing this and hang out with your posse, or do you want to become one of the all-time great players in the NBA? And Ja's in a very similar situation here. And the NBA in those 15 years has doubled its revenue, tripled its revenue. The idea that they're not watching him at all times before this instance is just not true. So they have a lot more information on what he's been doing, what's true, what's not. I'm sure there's a ton of other stuff we don't know about. And it's really up to them to get him to decide, what does he want to do? How does he want his legacy in the NBA to be? Because he just signed a Powerade deal this week. He's got his Nike brand new shoe coming out. These are probably tens and twenties of millions of dollars a year for Ja Morant. Again, he's about to start a $200 million deal where he become a free agent again, 27 years old, already with 200 something million dollars in his pocket. We're talking about a guy who could make potentially $1 billion in basketball related income.
Mhm.
And I really hope he doesn't throw it away, because he is electrifying. He's the fastest player in the NBA. He has a city behind him. And, the Grizzlies are a very small market team. This is not a team that, can get rid of him in 3 years and be fine. They need him. And I think the Ja Morant needs the NBA.
So, a few things. It's not that I rolled my eyes at
You're allowed to roll your eyes at things I say.
so I think my point with Ja is that Ja not only needs the NBA, but I think the NBA also needs Ja. I
That's what I
think,
said. Yeah,
but I think because you need to grow the product domestically. We've heard for the last few years how the game is growing internationally, and I think when it comes to Ja, the most important thing to remember is that um, while the 50 there could potentially be a 50 game suspension if 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 the NBA finds Ja guilty of bringing his weapon in a team plane. That being said, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't like. I think the NBA also needs Ja because he is probably the the best American player right now. Um, and I I think
him or Tatum for sure.
sorry, actually, yeah, I would probably put Tatum higher than Ja, but like Ja Morant is up there, and I think I think we learned a lot of lessons with Allen Iverson when he was in the league and his relationship with David Stern. Um, and I think when it comes to the NBA getting involved, like Ja still has the opportunity to make the difference. And I think these next few days while he's away, it'll be very telling to see what the deal would be in him um, seeing if he's matured. I mean, his apology from over the weekend seems sincere, and I think we take it from there. I think there have been a lot of poignant statements from a lot of former players, including Carmelo's. My hope is that Ja like puts the right people around him, and then B also finds a way to keep those incidents like off the map for now, because he's gonna have to go through a rehabilitation of his image in the league now. And and it's funny because you can work your whole life to reach this level of fame and success in athletics, but it really takes one incident like this to really like derail a promising career like his. Um anyway, that's all I got on the John
Yeah, I
Moran.
mean, you brought up the AI comps, right? And AI was a similar player, a franchise carrying, undersized guard who had some off the court troubles, and 2 years after he left the NBA, went bankrupt. He filed for bankruptcy. And the idea of Ja, who again could have everything in this league, to have him kind of go through being compared to that now, it's sad to me. And I hope, as he said in his statement, he gets the help he needs. I think he just needs like a timeout to get away and kind of see how the NBA can help him, how, his closest friends and family can help him. And the ones who are kind of not helping him, they got to get out of the way. And
I'm curious to see what he means by help. Like, what does that mean?
I mean, it's a great question, but I think, there's been too many reported instances of allegations, potential violence, and to get his crew to be smaller, to get his crew to be how do how does his crew help get the best out of Ja instead of thinking about themselves, thinking about, things that you were thinking about before he became an NBA superstar. And if those guys are not helping get the most out of Ja, then they got to get out of the way. And that's up to Ja to decide who to cut out. And there's going to have to be some people to cut out. You already had one guy who was banned from the arena after the Pacers thing. So whether the laser pointer thing was real or not, something happened to make a guy get suspended for a full year from the arena. So I think the NBA is going to have to help him with that. I mean, look at LeBron. Look at his inner circle. Look at, Rich Paul. Look at, Maverick Carter. These are guys who not only you never heard of one bad thing off the court from LeBron. All these guys who've been in his inner circle since he was a kid are all now superstars in their own worlds.
Yeah.
And John needs to find which of his guys he can trust and can kind of do something similar to that because it can be done. And that's what I
Uh,
think by find help.
so then, uh, so just to put Side note, the LeBron aspect also makes you appreciate him even more. LeBron's
For
had
sure.
really had no scandal in his like 20 plus
Yeah.
years in the
19
NBA
years.
or in the public eye, really.
Yeah.
And like the worst thing he did was the decision, which is not even a bad thing really in theory. He still donated money to the Boys and
Yeah.
Girls Club that same night.
We appreciate that one a lot more now than we did then. That's for sure.
Right.
That
That's what
was,
I'm saying.
it was not hurting anyone other than, the Cleveland fans and the New York fans. But
Um, but anyway, with Ja, we just hope that that situation resolves itself soon. But I want to pivot over to something a little bit more happy for us as Knicks
yeah,
fans. We Our 9 game winning streak was snapped against the Hornets on Tuesday night. It was a really deflating loss, but I also understand the Knicks were probably like gassed. They look gassed in the second half.
yeah,
But now they embark on a West Coast trip. They're going to play the Kings on Thursday night. And it'll be an interesting matchup because I think those two teams have been compared for so many years. And now they're sort of like both in successful positions to make noise in the West. So I think I'm excited to see what the Knicks do from now on. But in terms of the rest of the regular season, I think the Knicks need to stay healthy. So if Brunson needs to sit out 5 more games because of his
yeah.
sore left foot, he should. Um, and I think that the Knicks probably need to wind down in terms of some of the minutes of the players, but I know that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, you have 15 games left. You're 4 up on the Heat for that play-in. And, we talked about it before the show. Obviously, both of us would rather be in that 4-5 range, get a matchup with Cleveland. But at the same time, the goal is just to make sure you're healthy going into the playoffs. I think this team can kind of give anybody a competitive series other than Milwaukee, right? We talked about that before the show. If you end up 6 and you play Philly, I think you got a chance, or Boston. But at the same time, you just want to make sure you're healthy, you're ready to go. You have a big enough lead to avoid this plan. The goal for the rest of the season is to keep winning games, obviously, but it's also to make sure everybody is fresh and ready to go for playoff time. This is a very similar feel good out of nowhere story that it was 2 years ago. They get to the playoffs and what happens? They looked gassed. They got exposed for a lack of offense, and they lose to a Hawk team we thought they would both beat
Well,
4-1.
I didn't think
We
that.
thought it would be we did not think it would be 4-1.
That's true.
And so
I had my
avoid that
concern.
happening again. If Brunson's got a foot injury, he should sit. Quickly should not be playing 50 minutes a game, like he did in the ball. I know it was 2 overtimes. It's
Yeah.
partially a joke, but Julius Randle should never play more than 40 minutes in a regular, non-overtime game for the rest of the regular season.
Right. We're not even insinuating for them not to play. We're just saying don't play them that high minutes. But
Correct. At least for the last 15 games of the
yeah.
season. Let's kind of rev this thing down, get these guys ready to go, and see if we can get the best basketball out of this group in April. And dare I say it, maybe May.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so too, man. I hope so too. And it's also nice to see RJ sort of also like finding his groove a bit. He still has his things to work on, but he's become a nice nice third or fourth scorer, depending on how you rank quickly too. But it's nice to see. He was good the other night against the Celtics, and yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
what a crazy win. I mean,
Yeah.
I know
Amazing
it's like
win.
4 days after, but we didn't have a
That
pod.
was an amazing win. I mean, I'd rather talk about that than this mad Hornets game. They look great, quickly look great, and good job by you putting him as the 6th man of the year in your betting, because now I think he's gonna get it. That was the game on national TV that all of a sudden it's like nobody wants to give it to Malcolm Brogdon. Like it's same as the rookie of the year thing. Like that's not fun. Like they almost tried to give it to Embiid playing 30 games that year. So yeah, I think you're going to get that one as long as he stays healthy. And, again, if Brunson misses time, he's going to play even more minutes. And I think that'll allow, even though it's a 6th man of the year, he's supposed to be the 6th man. He'll be starting and he'll be putting up big numbers. and I think that'll get him being sixth man of the year. But yeah, I think the Knicks are in a good spot. They have the 19th hardest strength of schedule, so it should be a decently easy schedule. You play the Heat again, you could get another a game on them. I think that's March 22nd. I'll be in the arena for that one. So it should be great to see as they wind this thing down, keep winning games, and try to enjoy it. This is a great time to be a Knicks fan. We haven't been able to say that much in the last few decades, and so just try to enjoy these few games and enjoy it.
All right, I'll do my best, Steve.
All right, Chris, let's get to our final thoughts right after this. All right, Chris, final thoughts time here. Unfortunately, we kind of saw this coming, but Lonzo Ball still not healthy. He likely needs a third knee surgery, which is going to keep him out of reported at least 6 months. This is very sad. I hope we see him again. We've already started to see the tweets of, is this the end? He's only 25. They could label him as the career-ending injury exception to get the money off their cap. He still gets every dollar, but that would alleviate the $40 million they owe him the next couple years off their books. Unfortunately, if you're a Bulls fan, it's a team that's going nowhere. They're battling for a 10 seed, and if you find a way to get Lonzo's money off your books, you're still over the cap. And so the Bulls are going nowhere with or without Lonzo. And I just hope he can come back and hopefully in the middle of next year and be healthy and show 90% of what he was, because he was a pretty nice player. And, that team was really doing well when he was healthy.
I think they were a top 4, top 3 team in the East, something like that.
I think they finished 6th his first year there. And
right.
But they were top 4 for most of that year,
right.
and then fizzled down the stretch. But, Lonzo, Levine, DeRozan, Vucevic, that's a pretty nice 4 that, you're not going to win anything, but they want to just be in the mix. They want to be competitive. They want to be kind of like what I thought the Knicks were a couple of weeks ago, right? And if you get him healthy, I think they can go back to being a 6 to 8 seed. And for some reason, they really want that. And so I hope he comes back and can give that to them, because it's sad to see a 25-year-old who I thought his best basketball was ahead of him now looking like his career could be over.
Yeah, you're right. His injury made me think a lot about how the Knicks' path could have been, because the Knicks had a lot of rumored interest in him. Yeah. He was going to hit the free agency market when he was right before he left the Pelicans. So there's that. We were also in conversations of having Kevin Durant and Kyrie. We all know how that turned out. So I find it so fun. I mean, I say the word funny, but it's just insane how the Knicks' luck finally came in their favor for once, and they hit the right mark with Jalen Brunson. They got Julius Randle for potentially 2 all-NBA level seasons. We have a potential 6th man of the year in quickly, and we have a defensive star in Mitchell Robinson, and not to mention RJ Barrett, which might end up being the best, the right pick at number 3 out of the ones from his draft. So, because Zion is hurt.
Can you imagine if the Knicks, I mean, obviously there are other guys like Tyler Hero and Keldon Johnson who have had nice careers so far, but can you imagine if the Knicks wind up benefiting from being the number? Oh my God, that whole draft is to me, that was the only year they've ever tanked.
Yeah.
And they didn't win the draft, and they were we're never doing this again. And so it's crazy. I hope Zion and Ja come back and be as good as they can be, but
we need Zion back before your trip, before our trip to New
Orleans.
Our
trip. Yeah, no, I don't think he's playing again this year. I think he's done. I think they know it. And I think they're trying to hide it to make more season ticket sales.
I think it depends on whether the Pelicans are in the conversation for the playoffs or not.
They are. Yeah, we talked about this last week. I think there's no team that is going to be out of it by then, because they're all so mediocre. They're just going to, they're all going to be somewhere between 1 and 5 games under 500, battling for these 8, 9, 10 seeds.
Yeah.
And I think that Knicks game is going to be critical, not for the Knicks, but for the Pelicans. I did not see that coming at all 3 months ago. Did you?
No, but I'm glad the season turned out the way it did.
Yeah. All right, Chris, that's going to do it for us here on the All Hoops podcast. I thank you again. Thank you to our amazing listeners and watchers. And we'll be back next week to talk about more NBA action.
Bye, everyone.